Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Charles Bliss and I'm a psychedelic journalist from Norwich, UK. On this channel, we make videos about the Beatles, psychedelics and death as I write the manuscript for my first book. If you're scared of death, and aren't we all, this is the channel for you. In this video, we're going to explore how a pinball analogy explains why John, Paul, George and Ringo, despite their experimentation with drugs, never died of an overdose, while many of their contemporaries joined the 27 Club. Let's flip. In 2019, I spent 6 months in Japan. In the summer, I took an escalator up to what would become one of my favourite places in the world, the Silver Ball Planet in Osaka. This is a vintage pinball arcade located on the 3rd floor of the Shinsaibashi Big Step shopping mall in Amerikamura, a trendy and vibrant hangout spot that forms the heart of youth culture in the city, presided over by a replica Statue of Liberty. The Silver Ball Planet has hundreds of pinball machines, from Elvis, Super Mario and The Simpsons, to Ghostbusters, The Addams Family and The Twilight Zone. There are so many that you can hear the thunder of rattling bumpers and Japanese kids slamming jackpots long before you walk through the doors. One of the most mind-blowing parts for me was that they had the Beatles pinball machine, which had only just been released when I visited. I loved it so much that I spent the better part of a day smashing ramps, racking up combos, and laying down high scores among the epileptic lightning and flashes of the backboard glass. I was so into it that I didn't realise that I was the last one left in the place and the owner was trying to close up shop. In the end, he cut off the main power to all of the machines to get rid of me. On a pinball machine, the tilt mechanism detects when the machine is being lifted, tilted, or shaken. The component is made of a hanging metal pin in the body of the machine with a ring around it. If the machine is pushed, the pin will sway from side to side, and if it connects with the outer ring, the tilt mechanism will be activated. When the mechanism is triggered, the machine tilts, which means that the lights and playing field die, the flippers lock, and the ball falls straight down the middle into the drain, which ends play.
Bastards!
It was originally designed to prevent players from cheating by lifting up the machine and causing the balls to roll backwards. But it also prevents damage to the machine by discouraging players from shaking the body too hard and destroying it. But what does all this pinball nerdery have to do with the Beatles, psychedelics and death, you ask? Allow me to explain. George Harrison said that the Beatles had a tilt mechanism, which is one of the reasons why, despite their use of drugs like Preludin, marijuana and LSD, they never overdosed. It is worth mentioning that LSD and other psychedelics like psilocybin, the psychoactive ingredient in magic mushrooms, are non-addictive and non-toxic. There is no known overdose threshold. The main danger is the difficult or unsafe situations that someone might get into while intoxicated, or if they are combined with other drugs like alcohol, barbiturates, or amphetamines. But the Beatles didn't restrict themselves to psychedelics. Throughout their lives, benzodrine, cocaine, heroin, and other psychoactive substances were taken by different members of the Beatles. John Lennon was undoubtedly the most hedonistic of the boys, and he got hooked on heroin. But George Harrison and Ringo Starr also had a cocaine habit in the 1970s. Paul McCartney was the most hesitant when it came to hard drug use, but he was a heavy user of marijuana into the 1990s. Got to Get You Into My Life, a song from 1966's Revolver, is all about Paul McCartney's love of grass. The Beatles lived fast but didn't die young due to their drug use, while all about them, their friends and contemporaries succumbed to drug-related deaths, including Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. The Beatles' manager, Brian Epstein, also died of an accidental barbiturate overdose in 1967. So, why were the Beatles different? During a 1982 interview on Good Morning Australia, George Harrison spoke frankly about his drug use.
I always knew from when I was a kid, seeing films about Chet Baker or, these jazz people who OD'd on heroin. I never, ever wanted to know about heroin. I just kept away from it, and a lot of my friends died, and they're still dying, But I think, well, I was a bit lucky. I felt I had a tilt mechanism. I could get a bit loaded, but then I'd always cut out. Okay, that's enough. Go and get straight.
Harrison's second wife, Olivia, corroborated this idea in an interview she gave with Artsbeat from the New York Times in 2011. He said, "I'm lucky, I've got a tilt mechanism." And I used to look at him and go, "Well, your tilt mechanism goes beyond mine." Olivia meant that despite this tilt mechanism, Harrison's drug use bordered on the extreme on occasions. He felt he always knew when to come back, but it can be a dangerous way to live. Because he had an inner anchor and a very pronounced consciousness, not conscience, but consciousness, he knew, this was bad, I've got to get back. While the Beatles encouraged each other at different times to try different drugs, they mostly kept each other in check, and they had a hard rule against using drugs in the studio, which was mostly followed, although it's likely that John continued to take uppers and some marijuana was smoked. Lennon, in fact, once accidentally took LSD whilst recording at Abbey Road and had to be taken home. I'll leave you with one final pinball analogy. It's from Anthony Bourdain, the rock and roll chef, author, and documentary filmmaker. Bourdain was no stranger to psychedelic drugs and talked about them often. In the Netflix film Have a Good Trip, Adventures in Psychedelics, Bourdain recalled a fear and loathing in Las Vegas style bender he went on, which involved LSD and a cocktail of other drugs. Continuing the Japanese theme, Bourdain also compared his first trip to Tokyo to a psychedelic trip.
The first time I came here, it was a transformative experience. It was powerful and violent experience. It was as if it was just like taking acid for the first time, meaning, what do I do now? I see the whole world in a different way.
But in one interview before his death in 2018, Anthony Bourdain used a pinball metaphor to describe his view on life.
You've ever been really drunk late at night and you're playing pinball and you want to go home, but you keep racking up extra points because you don't care and you never expected to be there in the first place? I feel like that. I'm on my third life and on bonus round.
Your life is a bonus round. Every day is a bonus round. Remember that. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like John, Paul, George and Ringo to help cure your fear of death, I invite you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow updates by signing up to my newsletter, Afterglow, on my website, link in the description. I'll see you next time. Peace.